Hey everyone, Yash here, and today we're going to be talking about Thor Ragnarok. This movie, here's the same keywords for every Marvel film so far. Conflicting, underwhelming on the first rewatch. Conflicting, underwhelming on the first rewatch, and then finding things about it that I do end up enjoying and seeing how it fits into the overall MCU timeline. So when I first heard of the movie, I thought, okay, this is going to be very weird, very strange, very different. And that was basically what I was looking for. With just not basically, but I expected that. Just something weird, strange, different. And the first moments when I came out of that movie were just, I guess, it was underwhelming. And the reason is because, one, I always thought Thor was a very larger than life kind of character. He was like this dramatic Shakespearean kind of actor, this god, this someone like plucked right out of a Lord of the Rings kind of story. And that's what I loved about Thor in Thor 1 and 2 and Avengers 1 and 2 was just how you have all these other Avengers who are kind of very humanistic. They have their humans, they very speak in a very regular tone, and Thor always speaks and carries himself as larger than life, but he takes himself with some seriousness, with some respect and gravitas. And one thing that felt jarring in my first rewatch when the first time seeing this movie was just how funny. I mean, obviously that was purposeful. They turned him into a kind of a comedic kind of character, and always giving like quippy one-liners and jokes all the time. And at first, I just kind of found it to be unsettling because we've already had 4 movies where we've seen Thor as this larger than life, dramatic, with giving a sense of gravitas. That's what makes him unique and separate from all the other Avengers. But seeing him in Thor Ragnarok and cracking jokes all the time like that and not really taking a situation seriously like he did in the past, so it did feel a little like this doesn't really feel like the Thor I know. This feels like Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. This feels like uh, Iron Man. This feels like all the other characters that he's just now more comedic. And I kind of miss that. I miss the Thor that's very dramatic, but I understand that, I like Thor, the second Thor film, Thor the Dark World. But that movie didn't do well critically or financially. I think it's one of Marvel's lowest points. Not lowest, but definitely one of Marvel's films that were not as successful and as well received. So I understand that they had to do something different with Thor. They just can't do another Thor film because clearly it's not something that's doing well financially to just do another Thor film. So they had to take some risks and try something different. And so on the one hand, I was underwhelmed by that because I felt like this whole thing was kind of like a buddy comedy kind of film. And we just had 2 films that came out earlier that year, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I loved. That movie was phenomenal. And Spider-Man Homecoming, which I took itself a little more seriously in a good way. And so Thor Ragnarok I try not to compare them to the other films, but it's all part of the MCU. I mean, it's just subconsciously every time you see that Marvel logo, you're aware of all these other great films that came after that logo. So you're just walking into the next Marvel film you walk into and you see that logo and the music starts coming up. You can't help but have those expectations because you're so used to seeing other films that have given you that emotional fulfillment, that have given you that larger than life greatness. And this movie just kind of felt like just a comic, like a buddy cop comedy kind of movie. So it felt underwhelming in the beginning. But then after having seen it 2 more times since then, I've started to appreciate it more and more. And the reason is because we've had other films come after it that have been great, which we'll get to once we get to them. But other films that came out after Thor Ragnarok that were just phenomenal, emotionally fulfilling. So I can appreciate this film for being just more of a buddy comedy buddy cop comedy kind of wacky, weird, crazy Guardians of the Galaxy 2.0 kind of film that exists as part of the MCU timeline. Because I will appreciate this film is very unique and very diverse and very it does a good job of separating itself from the other films. Like, yes, I walked into it with the expectations of it being as good as like Guardian of the Galaxy Volume 2 or Spider-Man Homecoming, just because those films came out earlier within the same year, within that year of 2017. But Thor Ragnarok still knew how to feel so different from the other MCU films. And it did a good job of deviating from the same three-act story. This is actually a good film that shows you how you can deviate from that same basic three-act, fighting the boss villain at the end, but still add so much uniqueness and a sense of difference that separates it from the other films. So I applaud the movie for doing that. And a lot happened in this film. I mean, you have, yes, they adapt the Thor comic storyline, but they also adapt Planet Hulk. So they show you the planet Sakaar, where you see Thor as like this great gladiator who's winning all these matches and is fighting Thor. And I love the film for doing that. I love the film for being so wacky and weird. Jeff Goldblum's in this movie as the Grand Master of that planet where Hulk is, where the Gladiator of Champions is happening. And it's just, he's great. He plays it in such a subtle, funny, relaxed tone. Like he doesn't act weird or he doesn't overact and get wacky. He just acts in like oh, hey, that's funny. Oh, I see we got a fighter here. Oh, okay. and he does it in the best Jeff Goldblum way he knows how. And it's pure magic. It's pure cinema. This is why we go to the movies, to see the greatness of Jeff Goldblum and his beautiful beauty. And it works. Another good thing that I really like is I do admire this film for how good the world building is. Even if the characters, they're interesting, but I didn't get emotionally connect with any of them, but they were funny and genuine, interesting characters. But the world building is incredible. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy has its world building, but it still has kind of a tone to its world building. Thor Ragnarok felt like it did a good job of really showing a new kind of world and also expanding upon the Asgardian lore and the fantasy as well as the wacky space adventure stuff. And it works in that way. And you have and so it does a good job in building upon that. Another great scene is when Doctor Strange has his moment. It's not even, I mean, people say it's a cameo, but it's actually a pretty full scene where he actually serves a purpose and furthers the plot and the story when Thor and Loki come to Earth to find their father, and then Doctor Strange basically imprisons Loki in like a never-ending fall. It's very funny. So Doctor Strange pretty much helps them find his father, and it's funny. He's interesting. He's engaging. It's cool. I like that they know how to add all these other characters into these films without coming off as if like, see, this is the MCU. See, they're part of it. It's like they know how to do it in such a genuinely simple yet pleasant way that makes you root for these characters, and you just love the character interactions because of it. And so you have great scenes like that. Hulk is also really good and really funny in this movie. It's interesting how we see Hulk as Hulk, and then when you see him as Banner, they really do impress upon you the duality of these characters, of how Banner and Hulk are so different from each other. And it works. This movie has a lot of funny stuff going for it. All the other actors are great. You have Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. You have Anthony Hopkins as Odin. I'll give you that. That scene when Odin passed away, that was a very beautiful and very awe-inspiring kind of scene, because it's the one scene that's very grounded and doesn't have much CGI. They're just in Norway, and all Thor and Loki found their father, and he's sitting there and he's telling them that he's going to die, that's his path, his next step in his life now will be him to die. And so they're just standing on this, because like, this film has all these crazy out of this world kinds of set pieces, and here's a scene which is just on Norway, on this beautiful green cliff looking upon the ocean, and you see this Gaelic Irish kind of music, the score, and it's a very sombering yet peaceful yet awe-inspiring in a good way. And then you see his father just talking to his sons one last time before he dies, and it's just beautiful, that idea, that message that Asgard is not about the place, it's about the people. And it's so the movie has really emotional moments like that, and it's Anthony Hopkins, so he's gonna deliver on these performances. Even and another thing what I do like is how Cate Blanchett is in this movie, and she's Hela, the goddess of death, and she embraces her role so much. She knows that this is a wacky film, and she has fun with it. She just has a good time, really, really, like, not overacting, but really sinking her teeth in just how mischievous she can be as the goddess of death, and just how funny she can be with the dialogue she's given, and she embraces it. And once again, I love that tradition of getting like Marvel being able to of getting actors who are normally known for like independent art house kind of projects, and they're called upon to have this great role to be in this like big budget CGI action adventure film. And it's amazing that we are in a time now where Marvel has proven to the world that they have enough credibility to not just make, CGI action adventure films, but good CGI action adventure films. Not just movies that are just like, oh, it's a CGI, so that'll sell the money, but that have some genuine heart, some sincerity, some comedy. And that's something I admire about this film, I may not be a fan of the fact that they turn Thor into a comedian. I mean, now after seeing more of Thor in future films, Infinity War, that I've started to get comfortable with it. Like, I feel like Thor Ragnarok was just a little too jarring of a change, seeing Thor from this like someone who was much more of a mature guy turn into this comedic guy. But now it's starting to grow on me, and it's working, and yeah, this is actually, the more I think about it, it is something that fits in its own unique, like, it doesn't feel like here's another Thor film, or just like here's another film to go see. It feels like, oh, we saw Guardians, we saw Spider-Man, now let's see Thor Ragnarok, let's see something different. And I admire that. It's hard to, Marvel is very impressive with their ability to keep surprising you. To keep being creative, to keep being innovative, to keep taking risks. And this movie took risks. Okay, the final fight scene is Hulk, Thor, Valkyrie, Loki, Heimdall, a bunch of Asgardians. And then, like, they're fighting Hela, the goddess of death, and a giant wolf. I'm not even going to give you any context. They're fighting Hela, the goddess of death, her evil skeleton army, and a giant wolf on a rainbow bridge. And it works. It's funny. It's comedic. It's actually action-packed. And it works. I'm not even going to give you any context. Just see the movie, and then you'll understand how we got to that point. But yeah, even then, maybe it won't be enough. But it's a funny movie. It's a good time. I wouldn't expect this movie to get give you the same emotions the way, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I feel, even the first Guardians of the Galaxy, those are the movies that did a really good job of giving you some real emotion and heart. Well, some real emotion, balancing the drama with the comedy. Thor Ragnarok is a comedy. This is a comedy. This is not like a dramatic film. This is a comedy. It has moments like that one scene with Thor's father passing away, which is dramatic. But other than that, it's a comedy. And I say if you walk into the film with that kind of expectations, I'm just looking for a funny, crazy, fantasy, space adventure, action-based CGI, crazy stuff that's genuinely unique and different and doesn't just and it's not as shy and embraces what it is, then Thor Ragnarok's definitely the film for you. And I highly recommend you check it out.